We also make sure that if you're selling in California, that you can abide by the rules there under something called CCPA and allow buyers to opt out of this. So we enable that and you can install it. But it's pretty straightforward. It says like, here's what happens. So you agree to share data and then your data is added to the pool. And again, it's not moving anywhere. It's always been at Shopify. It just allows our systems to now look at it. And then that is the data that is used to generate audiences. It's basically prior purchases and prior customer behavior over the past 90 or 180 days that they've been coming to your site.
You're listening to eCommerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder, and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
Imagine your long-awaited order just got delivered. You open up the package and, as luck would have it, your new shirt is in the wrong size. So what do? You open up your laptop, you begin a return, maybe even an exchange, but all you see is a customer service phone number. And if you're like me in a situation like this, you really don't want to talk to anybody, let alone write an email. So what do? You don't have days, let alone a week or more, to wait for a response. The ideal next step is to process your own return online, drop it off at a nearby pickup location, and move on with your life. And this is what a hassle-free return process is supposed to be like. And it is a reality for brands who are powered by Loop Returns. Now, Loop is the only returns platform that helps Shopify brands to create an ideal post-purchase experience. And they don't just handle returns, they also make it easy for Shopify brands to incentivize exchanges so you can grow your business and make happier customers. You can find out why over 1,600 of Shopify's biggest brands like Allbirds, Chubby Shorts, and Patagonia, and so many more all choose Loop. 100%, go check them out today at loopreturns.com and learn more. Well, hey there, my name is Steve Hutt. I'm Senior Merchant Success Manager here at Shopify, and welcome back to the 5th season of eCommerce Fastlane. Now, if this is your first time listening or you're a weekly subscriber, I seriously appreciate the fact that you're taking time and listening to the show today. I know there's plenty of podcast choices in Shopify e-commerce and direct-to-consumer marketing, and just the fact that you're here today means the world to me, and I know it does for my featured guest. Now, if this is your first time listening, this is an e-commerce show. We have honest and transparent conversations about building and thriving with your store, powered by Shopify or Shopify Plus. Now, if you're an ambitious lifelong learner, which you likely are since you're here today, you're definitely in the right place. I also highly recommend, to get the full value of today's episode, that you click through from your podcast app to the show notes at ecommercefastlane.com, and there you'll have the full transcript, links, and then any resources. I know we're going to mention quite a few of them today, but they'll all be there at ecommercefastlane.com. Now, today's episode, my guest is Daniel Debow from Shopify, and he's the Vice President of Product, the demand generation. I like to call his team the ROAS team, and we'll dig into that in a minute. Both alpha and beta testers have been using this platform for, nearly a year now, and this summer was launched Shopify Audiences, and it started with the Shopify Plus brands first, and the app and the underlying technology really are there to help merchants to find their next best customer. We'll talk a lot about the CPAs and the ROAS increasing, and just some of the ups and downs and the turmoil that's happening right now, and why this product was built. Hopefully we can dig into some case studies too about some early success from some brands. So let's welcome Daniel to eCommerce Fastlane.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And thanks to everybody who's listening. I too agree that there's a lot of things that you can listen to, and I really appreciate that people are going to give us a chance. And hopefully this is a useful and insightful, educational, maybe a little fun to listen to over the next little while. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. My pleasure. So let's talk a little bit about the Shopify Audiences product itself, because I know it's been creating a lot of buzz in the marketplace. I know recently Shopify released what they were calling Shopify Editions, which is a kind of, every 6 months they're releasing, a roundup, but a very visually compelling roundup of some of the products and services that Shopify has been building. And I'd argue that Shopify Audiences was the lead to the 2020 summer edition. conversion, when they talk about how to find your next best customer and just finding customers in general, because the conversion rates, are quite high. And these, this way you can get a lot better performing ads and things like that. And so I just would love for you to kind of share with our market and everybody listening today all about the product, just in general on a high level first. And let's just talk a little bit about, how, you believe this product is actually helping to expand the value of kind of what is available to brands to acquire net new site visitors, and in this case, actual conversions.
Sure. There's lots of places to start, but I think the best place to start within Shopify is what is our mission? And our mission is to help merchants, help entrepreneurs become independent. And for a long time in our history, we've always worked in tandem, and we still do work in tandem, right. Where merchants are able to set up a store, make it beautiful, provide all the service that the people would expect from a much larger area. And we do it in a simple and easy way. And we've always said, hey, merchants, it's up to you to go find your customers, right? We'll give you channels, we'll give you ways to get there. And that's worked incredibly well for so many merchants. And just, your listeners know the story of literally millions of merchants on Shopify. A couple of years ago, we noticed that ads were going to get harder. And we wanted to say, what can we do uniquely to help our merchants with this? And that's really the question that was asked, and where the audience product started from. And where the ROAS team that you mentioned, which is, part of the demand team here at Shopify, we've got a whole bunch of things under demand, but ROAS is one of them. And really was how do we help our merchants improve their return on ad spend? It was very simple. And it was really what do we think we can do? And I think at the core of the product, it was basically, we think we can help find the next buyer, find the next customer. We think we have a large set of data that we can use in a safe way that will help our merchants be better able to find people who are in market and looking for products like the ones that they sell. And if we could help them with that and do it in tandem with our ad platform partners, this would be a great win. And so that's what we are happy to say we have today. Merchants can go into Audiences, pick a product that they want to sell, and the audience system will generate an audience of people that, and we can explain how we think are in market. And then they can take that audience and go run a campaign on a third-party ad platform like Meta, which is where we are right now. So that's basically how it is, and where it came from, and what it does. And I'm happy to expand more as you ask more questions.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the origin story of this product. Why do you believe that now was a great time to actually have a go-to-market strategy with it and release it out? I know it's been alpha and beta tested for a while, just to almost prove your hypothesis that, that Shopify does have some interesting data that they can use in a safe manner with these ad platforms to, improve the ROAS. The reality is, I know it massively works. I have many brands that are currently active with Audiences, but let's talk about why you believe specifically right now is very ironically great timing to have this available for Plus brands.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a regulatory and competitive marketplace that is essentially changing the way that ad targeting has worked historically, or the way that it evolved. And, if you think about what you're going to try and look for customers, you're going to try and build a segment that's built around, demographics, right? I'm 48 years old. I have 4 kids. Maybe I'm in the market for a dog collar, or interest, right? I'm clicking on dog collar pictures, and I like dogs, and I have dog food. I mean, that's all really helpful. But the signal that's really important is hey, am I looking for dog things, or did I just buy something that suggests that I'm probably going to be in market? If I bought a dog bed, probably I'm going to buy a dog collar. And what the changes that I described initially that were sort of the catalyst of it, they're making it harder for third-party ad platforms to use data about that intent, what people are looking for, what they're searching for, what they've just bought. It's getting more and more difficult for them to connect that to their interest and demographic graph. And so one thing that's happening, though, is that behavior, that data is captured and collected on merchant storefronts. That's where you go to buy a product. That's where you go to browse for something or look for something that you're interested in. And so the question we asked was, how can we help merchants help themselves? So typically, many people have heard about this metaphor of, Shopify is arming the rebels, right? We're giving the tools to these rebels to go off and be independent. Maybe the way to think about what Audiences is this isn't just arming the rebels. This is creating the Rebel Alliance, right? It's allowing these merchants to work together. And so that was really what we said is how can we make all the merchants better off? if they agree, and this is how the product works, they agree to share customer data with each other, again, in a fashion that doesn't impede them competitively, doesn't put them offside with regulators, is something that's appropriate. But if we could allow them to share this data with each other, that would make all of them better off, right? They'd all be able to understand. And it's just kind of like, not to get too wonky, but it's kind of like Ricardian games from trade, or maybe the best examples is like, there's lots of examples of merchants who collaborate indirectly with each other, even like, in certain districts of the city, like all the flower shops will be there, or all the diamond shops. Well, it's because, hey, that's where all the customers are. And if you think about Shopify storefront, that's where the customers are. So these merchants can work together to generate audiences that help all of them perform. We thought that was something that we could do really effectively. And, candidly, we don't charge for this capability. This is something that, there are products in the market that exist like that. And historically, you contribute your data and you pay to get an audience. We've not done that. We've chosen that to really help merchants out in this time when something that they depend upon, the sort of general ad ecosystem, is not working quite as well as they wanted it to. And we're working with all the partners to try and make it effective. I think it's incredibly important to understand how much our merchants use ads to find customers who want their niche products, right? It's really important. We have a huge interest in helping these merchants in this Rebel Alliance come together to do that.
Love it. I love the Rebel Alliance. That's I've always heard arming the rebels. I've been for Shopify just shy of 5 years also. And that's been an ongoing conversation about, just building a path that leads to more entrepreneurs and then, and independent retail, but arming the rebels with the right products and services. But now, you're actually the Rebel Alliance now. So I love it. Everyone's working together. And I've also found it's been quite successful too. A lot of, there's certain apps that really help with aligning yourself with other non-competitive products, and maybe on a post-purchase experience on a thank you page, and kind of recommending other tools or other products that can kind of be complementary to what they just purchased. And there's ways of kind of building relationships between brands. And I know we're, working on that internally also, trying to figure out how can we make complementary ideas. One thing I love about this tool right now is the fact that at the end of the day, it really is creating more actual conversions for the same amount of spend you have. And I think I'm going to unpack a lot about how, because I have quite a few brands using the tool right now. I just want to make sure people understand that it's working, and it's working very effectively. There still is some experimentation required, but it's so interesting how well it is working. I do want to pivot a bit to the team though behind the product, because I think, from my perspective, I'm not a product guy. I'm more of a marketing guy, but I find it interesting how you were able to build a team. And I wonder if you could kind of share with our audience a little bit about just maybe the mindset, or just how did you find the right experts and then build a team? Like there was a thought that this problem needed to be solved, but then how do you find both internal or external team members and assemble them all together and then create this magic that this app actually released?
Sure. I think Simon Sinek wrote a book called Start with the Why, and I think that's really where this started. And I think a lot of our success can be attributed to, look, I find that the people at Shopify are incredibly mission aligned. I know that I tell teams that I'm here because I meet people in my regular walks of life who say, hey, if it wasn't for Shopify, we would have lost our house during COVID. We would have lost our business. Or people who are like, I'm actually succeeding in a business because of Shopify. Or just walking to a merchant store at a place when I'm traveling and see their eyes light up when I ask about their POS system or how they're getting sales online. So the why matters a lot. And the why in this case was real. We started by just talking to merchants, and, we could sense their pain. We could sense their, I don't want to say the word desperation, but some of these marketers were really desperate that sort of what was working before wasn't working. And of course, in online marketing, things are always changing. You always experiment. You always find new tactics, but this was different. This was something that was material. And so I think starting with the why, we had a group of people who were very motivated. I mean, you're already at Shopify. You want to help entrepreneurs. You want to help these merchants. But this was an acute pain that we could see that it was having. And it's material, right? Our merchants will often spend 10, 20% of their revenue, all their revenue on online ads or online marketing. So that's a huge input cost. That's after cost of goods sold. That could be one of their biggest things. And so we started with the why. We had a very open mind to the question of what are we trying to do here? It was not, we're going to go build this thing. We actually were very expansive of here's the problem. And what are a bunch of different ways? And we did that. We looked at dozens of different potential solutions. We prototyped a few. There are actually other solutions that came out of this exploration that are still yet to become and that are being built right now. So I don't want to give them all away. But it wasn't just this, but this was the first of many. And then what we did is just on the people, we found it was a mix of like people who had deep Shopify experience, who had worked on other products and had a long time history here. And then new people, new team members who joined our data science team, who joined as data engineers, joined our development team here. Candidly, I went and reached out to some. I have been lucky enough to be a co-founder of a few companies. I called some of the folks that I thought were some of the very best engineers I'd ever worked with before from prior companies and said, look, we're working on this incredibly important mission-aligned product. Would you like to come be part of that? And some of them joined, and we were lucky for that. But I think really the other thing that's interesting about the team that's built this is intentionally, it's not just ad tech people. It's actually people who come from a broad range of data science expertise, people who've worked in large CPG companies, people who've worked in academic settings, people who've worked in high throughput computing environments or manufacturing. And that was actually important because we wanted to take a look at all these problems with a fresh eye. I interviewed a lot of people to be like leaders on this team. And it was very similar patterns of thought, like, here's how you do it. This is what you should do. And we wanted people who are thinking differently about this because this is not just the end of a journey for Shopify to help our merchants with return on ad spend. This is the first of many, many steps. Like Shopify does, we want to kind of look at the problem from first principles, think about what the world should have, how it should look, what merchants would want. And I think that's been really great to the team. I think you're right. It is a relatively small team here. We're growing. And then also, we did bring in, and we were lucky enough to bring in a few folks who had some really deep ad tech experience who were excited because they immediately saw the potential of what we could do to help merchants and help entrepreneurship. I think that's the team today. It's pretty exciting, pretty fun group. I think the third element was it's very much run like a startup inside Shopify. I mean, Shopify itself, it amazes me, even at the scale, is still very much like a startup. It runs very fast. It's very agile response. And I think merchants know that about us. But this was like, how can we go even faster because this is an urgent need? I think the last thing I'd say about how we built it was very incrementally, experimentally, right? We wanted to make sure that we weren't violating kind of precepts about what people come to Shopify for. So for example, the fact that merchants are sharing their customer data, historically, we have never, ever kind of opened that door. We always say the merchant's data is theirs own. And so we wanted to be really careful about the way that we framed it, the way that we spoke about it, and the way that we use the trust that we have earned over many, many years for millions of merchants, that we make sure that this was a trust building exercise as we entered into sharing customer data about like how we put safeguards, how we would communicate it, make sure. So we sort of experimented with a series of iterations you alluded to earlier until we were like, yeah, we think this is right and this is going to work. And, that's how it's played out. It's been really positive and it's fun seeing the excitement of merchants who are, as you said, seeing some incredible results. Some merchants who are using this are really seeing breakthrough results in it. That's just so motivating for us to continue to improve.
One thing I want to talk about is how the product actually works, because and it's hard sometimes maybe without having a video and showing it, but I want to make sure people understand like the simplicity. I think there was a lot of UI and UX that went into how do we build this thing so it's easy to use, but powerful. And for me, most brands, when I tell them about it, like they love the concept, they love the idea. They've read the Shopify editions and other different types of information that I've sent them and, on my one-on-one calls I have monthly. But one thing I say, just go to the App Store right now. First of all, let's see if you're even available for it. And the short answer is if you're on Shopify Plus, it's available to you right now, providing you're in North America. And so it was pretty straightforward. Just go to the App Store, you add it on, and then you land on this page that says, find your next customer by joining the shared audience network. And there's a nice big green activate button that talks about how to activate and share your data, but then how you also get data. So can you walk us through a little bit about what is actually happening under the hood? Because I think people are just maybe, as you said, a little bit apprehensive, but we're Shopify and we want to make sure that we're very intentional about how we're using customer data and the non-PII, the non-person identifiable information, and the fact that you're still using Meta. So I think there's some miscommunication about, do I use my existing ads that I already have in the Facebook Ads Manager? Are you it's just the import and the export? Then there's a little bit of confusion about how the workflow is, and can you walk us through that?
Sure. Let's clear it up. I mean, I'll say from the outset, it is very easy to get started. In fact, we've done a bunch of user testing and the videos are funny. Sometimes people are like, that's it? I'm done? Like, really? That's all I had to do?
Yeah.
And that's intentional. Like a lot of ad tech, frankly. By the way, I knew nothing about ads when I started this project, and I still probably know less than most of the people on the team. But, what I found was a lot of these systems were like, kind of space shuttle, like a lot of dials, a lot of variables, a lot of options. And frankly, if you're a maker, you build an amazing dog collar, you make a great handbag, you have an incredible the skincare line, that's not your core thing, I think. And we want to make it easy for you. The inspiration in some ways for the product was like an elevator, in the sense that like, when you go to an elevator, you don't have to figure out where the elevator is, tell it to come up, I'm on 6, you're on 3, come up 3 floors, then add 3 more floors because I want to go to 9. No, you just say like button up, take me to 9, right? That's it. And sort of that's the design. So how would the experience work for a merchant? It's just to clarify. So first you have to be a Shopify Plus merchant. You have to also be using Shopify payments. And yes, it is for North America only for now. So it'll expand in the future, but right now those are the constraints. You're right. It's an app. So you go to the App Store, if you're eligible, you install the app. And then what it's going to ask you for is, do you agree to share your customer data? And we give you a bunch of information that you should know as a merchant about what happens to your data, how you should make sure that you have the right permission to use the data. Shopify has a really great example privacy policy that you can use. We also make sure that if you're selling in California, that you can abide by the rules there under something called CCPA and allow buyers to opt out of this. So we enable that and you can install it. But it's pretty straightforward. It says like, here's what happens. So you agree to share data and then your data is added to the pool. And again, it's not moving anywhere. It's always been at Shopify. It just allows our systems to now look at it. And then that is the data that is used to generate audiences. It's basically prior purchases and prior customer behavior over the past 90 or 180 days that they've been coming to your site. And so that's the enablement. And then the creation is really simple. You go into the app, you're going to have a product picker essentially, and it's going to say, which product would you like to run ads for? Now, sometimes merchants ask, I have lots of products. And so we'd say, you can pick a representative one, you can experiment. Maybe in the future we'll expand it, but right now it's one product at a time. And what the system does is essentially looks at the many, many, many millions of people who are represented by all the merchants in the network. And it says, okay, you want to sell this product. Let's do some math. That's what it does. Machine learning does some math and says, what are products that are predicates of this? What are things that people have purchased? That's one signal. There are other signals that we add, and I'm not going to go into every detail, but we'll think about like what would help us figure out who's in market for this. And then it'll generate a hashed list for you. And then you can export that list to Facebook today for running on Facebook or Meta. And over the coming year, we'll be adding other platforms like TikTok or Pinterest or Snap or others so that you can run ads with these audiences on those places. Once the audience has been generated, and it can take a little bit of time, it gets exported over to, in this case, Facebook. And then you go in there and you can use it as you would. So a couple of best practices. We encourage you to experiment like all ad tech products. There's a variable here. We don't control your creative and your bid strategy. So you're going to have to work with that and find out what works well with the audience we've generated. We encourage you to do lookalikes. So why do we encourage that? We've seen people have great performance combining sort of what Shopify knows with what Facebook knows to create very large audiences. Typically, they have lower CPMs than the pure audience that we generate, which could be 2 to 4 million names. But what we find is the smaller audiences have higher conversion rates. So in the merchants where the right combination of product AOV, conversion rate on site, and CPA that they're paying for, cost per action, is resulting in some cases in like really big positive increases in their return on ad spend, because while the audience might be a little more expensive, it's also converting better. And so where it's working, that's really where people are having it. The lookalike helps to lower that CPM, but we're also seeing great performance there. Other sort of best practices we encourage are for people to, there's some labeling stuff, and we provide all this, but it's to go back frequently and update that audience because it's based on, most recent purchase. And so people are shopping every day. And so more people are coming into that we can refresh who are more recently showing intent signals that we think you should use. I'll pause there, but that's it. It's really simple. You go and you pick a product, generates an audience, you go run a campaign against that audience, rinse and repeat, continue to find out what works. And that's what we're seeing our merchants experiment with.
Now, online shopping can feel risky for some customers. Imagine if your order arrives in the wrong size. This totally happened to me recently, or in the wrong color, or it just doesn't look right on you. And there really can be hundreds of reasons why you may want to return a product, and I totally get it. And that's why Loop Returns makes it easy for Shopify brands to encourage exchanges rather than refunds. We all know that returns don't equal goodbyes, they equal new hellos. And Loop really has a slick process to make it easy for a customer to have a fast return or exchange. I see why thousands of Shopify brands like Pit Viper, Somersault, and Princess Polly, they all choose Loop as their return partner. Now is the time to improve your post-purchase experience, so go check them out today at loopreturns.com. Yeah, it's interesting. I've gone through this workflow actually live with a few brands just to kind of show them how easy it is to do. And it really is by selecting, I always say go and take a look, what is your best selling SKU? And let's do a test with that one first. If you're selling boots, is there a certain pair of boots that are the most popular? What variant is it? Maybe that's the hero image we're going to use, and let the Audiences app kind of find the audience for you. Set that up, export that out, boom. You're still using the Facebook Ads Manager. It's not like Shopify is not taking over. You did make a comment about the fact that there are other solutions out there, a little bit of a black box going on about give them money to help them find the next possible customer. Ours is a little bit different where, yes, we understand buyer intent and we're making some decisions on who we believe your next possible customer is, but it's based on our data that we have. Makes me think a little bit about maybe being devil's advocate a little bit too, though. And this has been brought up before. I just would love to hear your feedback on it, is that even though it's not just anecdotally, we have a better ROAS than maybe Facebook does directly in a lot of cases. I don't say every case, but in a lot of cases. I know both alpha and beta, I've been following along to kind of see some of the early adopters of this tool. And it's been pretty impressive of kind of what has come out of it, hence why it's full go-to-market right now in North America. But if you compare to what Facebook does, Facebook really does, Meta, they want to spend all of your money, and they also want to do the best they can through their machine learning and how they can optimize campaigns for brands. Because that's the pushback that I got maybe in the early days until they actually tested it. But I'd like to hear it from your side. Why is it similar or different to what Facebook is already doing versus what we're doing?
Sure. I'm going to take a step back, though, and answer a question that I think is really important to understand. You asked about, what do we do differently? The other thing that we're doing with this product that's different is that we are measuring it using a different form of attribution, which is the email-based attribution. We know who we told you to look for, and we know when they come and convert. And that helps us not infer the contribution of what audience says. We can kind of know it. The other thing is, we're extremely transparent about how we calculate the conversions, how we think we can attribute success to this. And we very openly tell people how to do it, because what we're trying to do here is help merchants. We're trying to improve return on ad spend. I think the second thing I want to clear up is that this is not a question of better than Facebook or better than Snap. It's a collaboration of using the best of what we have with the best of what they have, or Snap or TikTok or any other partner. We're not in the business of selling ads, and we don't want to do that. We want to help our merchants get return on ad spend. And there's a great alignment around that. So even the example I gave you, which is use a Shopify audience seed, use that with Facebook. It's the combination of the data sets that both companies have experience with that's actually driving these great results. So it's not an either or, and you can use them together. And I think that's the key to understand. This is not that. And then in terms of data, look, you can see that there's been public statements that it's just because of the regulatory changes and because of the technical changes that, primarily Apple has brought through a series of choices, that it is sort of created gaps in data that makes it harder for targeting and measurement to occur. But those changes don't quite affect Shopify because, again, this is where these transactions occur. They don't affect us in the same way. And so we're able to bring the best of both companies together to, help improve what has been kind of a pretty crummy situation.
Mm-hmm. So let's get into a case study now, because I think, that's kind of where the rubber meets the road. And people, a lot of times they just feel very inspired when they hear about, another brand in cosmetics or, in whatever their industry is. It'd be nice to be able to hear a story. I don't know if, I know there is a public link that I'll have in the show notes that will have a list of, I don't know how many case studies we have now live on the site, but there's got to be about 5 or 6 of them, I think, that are publicly available right now on the Plus blog. I'll put a link to a few of those. But is there any one notable that you could maybe discuss today?
Yeah, sure. Look, you're right. There are case studies. In fact, I was having a great conversation with one of my marketing colleagues this morning, and he was saying, Daniel, like people are coming to us saying they want to be a case study right now because they're having these great results, which is really fun. I mean, I'd also want to say this. Not everybody has these amazing results. It's not like a magic panacea that automatically makes everybody do better. You have to experiment. You have to take some risk and capital and spend. You have to try variants. You have to do all the things that like continue to be part of the journey of a growth marketer for a D2C brand. And what we have seen though is that the merchants who persist, follow our best practices, are starting to see real and substantial results. So I just want to, make sure people, I want to be level. Our mission is to help merchants here. And I think I'm not doing them a service if I say, oh, here's this magic thing. We fixed everything, go home. That's not the case. This is just a really powerful tool to help get you back on track. Let me talk about La Maru, which is a great skincare brand, uses a proprietary method of cell communication to have these effective and essential products. And they started to use Audience in spring 2021. They started to see their CAC go up. They started to see CPMs go up by, 300%. And they are dependent upon this full funnel marketing. Like many other D2C brands, they rely on finding new customers. As much as they rely on the loyal ones to keep coming back, they need to keep filling that bucket of new buyers coming into the system. And as soon as it became available, like around May of 2022, they started to use it right away. And their results are amazing. They saw a 27% decrease in customer acquisition, 2.5 times ROAS. They started to see that 73% of all their paid acquisition was coming from the audiences that they were generating with Shopify. Importantly, and this is really key, is that their conversion rate, their click conversion rate went up by 48%. And they saw a 6.5% increase in add to carts. So what that's telling you is that we were really effective with them in finding the right buyers, people who were really in market and interested in their product. And, I think the fact that they were just not able to do that before, they're starting to do that now is wonderful. I mean, you also ask about emotions. You want to know how people react. I mean, look, our team is super pumped when our merchants are doing well. That's the best thing to hear about. And they, literally say thank you and appreciate it. But I got to tell you, like, we have dozens more of these experiences where we, talk to the merchants. Sometimes they're on video. And, there was someone the other day, it was pretty funny. He's like, I just don't understand why anyone wouldn't do this. Like, this is such an easy no-brainer thing to do.
Yeah.
I think the one thing I'm going to emphasize is it still does require some patience and persistence. It's not a magic bullet in any regard, but we are definitely see it become quite effective in the sort of toolkit that merchants are bringing to bear to, continue to find customers at a reasonable cost.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing that. It's good to hear that. I'll make sure I put this links, like I said, to a few of these other case studies. I know there's likely a lot more coming down the pike, no doubt, because I have a lot of happy brands.
Yeah, we've got just totally.
It's unreal.
We've got Bubs Naturals or Blender Bottle or Happy Hippo or Haya. Like these are all brands that are seeing real impact from using Shopify Audiences, and that is super gratifying.
Yeah,
it's really exciting.
So other than the experimentation side of being a growth marketer and using this tool maybe in tandem with Meta, are there any other kind of best practices that you want to share? I know you mentioned a bit about maybe potentially refreshing your audience every week. Is this something that you're seeing as a must do, or anything else you can think of?
Well, I mean, look, the system is always looking at who's coming to sites, and obviously fresher people have higher intent. I'd say, refresh every 7 to 14 days. I think that is counterintuitive because a lot of people are worried about the learning process. Heads up, we're going to improve audiences, we think, by making it continuous. So you don't have to do that. We'll just constantly, regularly update and refresh. So that's going to be an improvement. We're learning online about how to make the product even more effective for people. I think another best practice is to categorize your product. So Shopify has built-in product classification, but it's always better when a merchant makes sure the products they want us to find an audience, they've tagged it properly and classified it, because that helps the machine learning go off and figure out, okay, what exactly is this that I'm going to try and find predictors of who would want to buy something here. I think like labeling your audiences as Shopify audience when they go over. I think doing lookalikes in addition to sort of like raw measures is really effective. And test and learn. I can't emphasize enough how merchants have to do that. I think another, candid best practice is that sometimes merchants put like, they're spending $50,000 or $100,000 a month, and then they run like a $50 test. And they're like, well, I didn't see the results. You just can't do that. You're going to have to commit to a few percentage of your spend, at least, so that you can get enough data, enough numbers to see how this is working and where to use it in your funnel and what to do it for. And of course, once you become a Shopify audience user, you have access to all these best practices. We continue to update people, and we also are educating our MSMs so that they can help their merchants.
Yes, gone through that enablement. It was very epic, and it really did help me with one pagers and, just some good talking points and things. And that's, the reasons why so many of the brands that I manage have fully adopted the tool and absolutely love the app. And I know it's making a measurable impact, and they're happy. They're happy when you bring these new kind of products or services, to market. And I think for the most part, people are pretty open to wanting to test, but you make a really good thing about it's testing and learning from it. It's not a set it and forget it kind of a process. It's kind of work in tandem, but nonstop analyzing the data and seeing where are we at, what's working, what's not working, and making slight pivots and stuff. So I think that's pretty cool. You alluded a little bit about the fact that right now it's currently Meta, so going Facebook right now currently, and there's some opportunities for other ad platforms moving into the future. Are you able to share a little bit? I know you can't really reveal the public roadmap of the product or any of the features and stuff, but how do you believe the product's going to continue to evolve maybe outside of these extra ad platforms?
Sure. Well, so you're right. Let's think about a few areas. So one is, as with any software product, and especially with Shopify, we want to make it incredibly easy. And so we are constantly looking at the experience of how people sign up, where's their comprehension issues. You alluded saying, there's some confusion about this or that. And we know it and we're on it. And in fact, we've already shipped UX improvements. We've added more help documents because we want people to feel very safe and comfortable as they use this and really have transparency. We don't want anyone to sort of not know what they're getting into as they do this and how they can react with it. So you'll see UX improvements that make it continually easier to use. I think the second thing you'll see is, as you mentioned, more platforms. So more ways to not just use Facebook or Meta, but to use Snap, Pinterest, TikTok, and others who are all quite interested in seeing how can we improve our performance using Shopify Audiences. I think a third area of improvement, and probably the most important, is just performance is going to get better. Without getting into all the details, we are very excited about some improvements in the underlying machine learning infrastructure, the algorithms that are getting better and better. We're not on V0 anymore. We're continually improving. How do we predict? And then we're also increasing the size of the pool. So as more and more merchants discover that Audiences is available to them and join and add their customers to the network, that's increasing the spread and diversity of information that will help us find buyers who are in market for the products that you're looking for, as well adding more signals to the algorithm. So thinking about different things that we can do that'll be helpful and predictive. So all of those are on the roadmap and we can see that, but they translate into this third item. This is really the most important improvement, is just much better performance. And so that's really about saying, I don't think we'll ever get to it's a magic bullet and automatically works, but just more and more merchants having success out of the gate, easier to get that done. I think those are some of the big improvements that are going to come. I think I alluded to another one, which is we're going to try and get to a place where you can continuously, you don't have to come and update your audiences. They're auto updated for you. And some more other cool stuff, but I don't want to give away all the fun surprises. But what I'd say is that you asked me about the team and how we built it. And I want to go back to that. We started with the why. We think it's incredibly important to help merchants. The people here care about the people who are listening to this podcast. We want those people to be independent, to do whatever it means to become profitable in the business and employ people and give people products that they love. That's a great place to be. And the fact that we are getting so much positive feedback and videos from merchants and text messages saying, okay, I love it, but here's what I want you to do, is driving us even more to make something even more amazing. And, we're just getting started. We are just getting started here at Shopify on this mission that we think is really important.
This is lovely. I have a lot of takeaways. I'm a Shopify employee also. And selfishly, the reason why I have this podcast is because I really want to take the intentional space to really go deep and to learn something new and then, pay that forward to the 50 brands that I manage, and then the 400 on my team that I'm on. I'm always paying it forward to them. And that's what I'm hoping everybody gets out of this podcast, is that we did take the intentional space. This is your product and your team, and what you're building and what what the future looks like. You know what success looks like today also. I just want to publicly congratulate both you and the team for the incredible amount of hard work. I've been following the project internally for quite a while and was excited to see the alpha and beta results. And now I'm seeing all the amazing results now that are happening with brands, even brands that I manage that don't have public case studies, but I know, not just anecdotally, that it's working for them. So I just want to thank you so much for that. I also feel that, one big takeaway that I have also is that for those that maybe are on Shopify Plus, you're in America and you're on Shopify Payments, and you've not tried this yet, you're doing yourself a disservice by not trying it. You really do need, I'm not trying to push you too hard, but if you were in my book and I was managing you, I would really highly recommend that you at least test it, because if you don't test it, then the answer is no, it doesn't work. And the reality is it does work, and it can work if you're willing to put in the effort. And Shopify is, has the wide amount of data that's making this all possible thanks to your team. So I just wanted to thank you for that. What's our call to action for this podcast now? Like, where do you want to send those Plus brands that are listening today? What sort of things should they do next if they want to get involved?
Sure. Well, let me just, before I get to that, I want to double click on your point about thanking the team. I am not an engineer, a designer. I just use words and ideas. Yep. I don't actually build the thing. It is an incredibly dedicated group of people who have put in a ton of learning and work and dedication because they care about the why. And so I want to thank them too. I think it's been a lot of fun. They're a really great group of people who care about what they're doing. To your question about the call to, actually, before I get to that, also, I want to address something. You said there's some confusion. Not only is it a free product that's available to you if you're on Plus and Pay, there's limited downside. So if you are trepidatious about putting your customer data into the network, understand that you can leave at any time and you take your customer data with you when you leave. So it's not a one-way door, it's a two-way door. We wanted to make it safe. People can try it. If they don't feel this is something that they're getting benefit out, they can leave. I think a few other things is just to cut to the nub. You can't use this to competitively target your competitors. You have no idea where you can't say like, hey, I sell handbags, go after my number one handbag competitor. It doesn't work that way. And then because of the breadth of like the number of merchants in it, there's no one merchant contributing a really material amount to any audience that we generate. Like there's just no way. It's pro-competitive type behavior, especially when it comes to customer data. So I think that's just important for people to know. So, okay, call to action. I mean, the call to action is to try the product. And how do you do that?
Yes,
you go to the App Store, you search for Shopify Audiences. As we talked about up front, it's really simple. You install it. You're going to ask to approve the data sharing. And then you go in and pick a product that you want to campaign with, generate an audience. It'll automatically export to Facebook. And then you go in there to the ad manager and you run your campaign. You're probably going to want to set up a series of testing regimens and experimentation at first, like any new tactic in marketing or in ads. That's what we would suggest. You kind of have to set yourself up, as I mentioned, for, spending, a real amount of money and for a period of time to sort of figure out how it works for you. But the call to action is to try it. I mean, I think it's, as the merchant I was talking to the other day or saw the video the other day said, this is just a no-brainer. What have you got to lose and only to gain in a world where it's just harder and harder to find the next customer? And we are really excited that just by being on the Shopify platform, being a Shopify Plus merchant, being part of the Alliance, being part of the Rebel Alliance, that you can all be better off together, that independent merchants all together can find customers, help them find a product that's really great for them. That's a call to action. That's it. Pretty straightforward. You can also call your MSM. I think that's the other thing. If you want some help or support, we've done a lot to train our MSMs here, and they should be able to speak to you about it, and we're happy to get on with you.
Absolutely. Yep. For those brands of mine that I manage, if you are not online, then you definitely have to listen to the show. Thank you for listening to it, but let's get you on Audiences. I know it's going to make a difference. Daniel, once again, thanks for coming on the show. I really massively appreciate it. The mission of Shopify really is to make commerce better for everyone. And I mentioned earlier that, I'd also add that maybe, build a path that leads to more independent entrepreneurs or more independent retail. And I really believe this tool really is in tight alignment with wanting to help these brands to grow more revenue. I'd say even, generating more conversions for the same amount of ad spend. So that's improving your ROAS. I think it's a really exciting mission. I love the why behind it. I just want to thank you for coming on the show today and sharing your vision and knowledge, the incredible team behind you that's doing a lot of the heavy lifting and just championing this product. I know it's very impactful, and I wish you tremendous success into the future.
Got it. Yeah, definitely. I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on. I love your enthusiasm, Steve. Like, it's really great. Not really. I like, you know, I like to build things, and I've been part of this journey from the very beginning. And it's awesome as more and more people get on and understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. It's really great to hear the enthusiasm. Thanks to everyone for listening. And thanks again to the ROAS team, the audience team here at Shopify for building something awesome.
All right. Have yourself a great afternoon.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of eCommerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.